Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds. So this is where I like to collect together all the things that I've purchased over the past week and present it to you, give you guys a little bit of background. And so this past weekend was a long 3-day weekend. It was Memorial Day weekend here in the US. We get that day off. And so I took advantage of it. I added a few extra days off to it, had 5 days, went around to a bunch of record stores. I hit 3 different ones up, one of them twice, so basically 4 record store visits in all. And I amassed 29 CDs, 1 Holy Grail record. And if you've been watching the channel this past week, then you already know about it, but you're gonna see that here. And we'll dive into it here in just a bit, but if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, if you turn on notifications, you're gonna stay up to date on everything going on in the world of music, just like this, with New Music Finds. So I always start off with the new releases. That's exactly what we're gonna do here today. First one up that I picked up that had just come out on Friday was the brand new Lenny Kravitz album. Title of it is Blue Electric Light. Kind of an interesting cover there. So yeah, it came in a cardboard case, not quite digipack, but you guys know what I mean by these things. Never liked that. Love my jewel cases, but all in all, the album's pretty good. It didn't quite blow me away as much as I thought it would when I had first heard the single TK421. That one just, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I didn't want to listen to anything else until the album dropped because I wanted to devour it that way. I'm not one of the ones that usually likes to hear too many singles up front because I want it to be as new as possible when it comes out. And so the first song's kind of mellow on it and doesn't really kick off heavy and hard the way that first single did, which is number 2 on here. And so what I found is I kind of like every other track on this. So I like 2, 4, 6, and so forth on here, just kind of the way that it goes. It's not a bad album, but it doesn't rock all the way through. But then again, Lenny Kravitz albums never do. He does a lot of different styles and genres. So if you're a fan of Lenny Kravitz, it's probably fantastic for you. I was just hoping for a little bit more rock based on that one song because it was so amazing. But all in all, I'm enjoying this and I do recommend it. I think it's a good album. All right, next thing I picked up was an EP by Municipal Waste. Now it has 9 tracks on it, but each one is like, I don't know, a minute or less or something around that time frame because it's 9 tracks in 9 minutes. So they just rip roar right through these songs. One song might be close to 2 minutes, I don't know, but there's ones that are like 37 seconds. All in all, cool though. I love it when they do little EPs like this in between their album. It's called Tango and Thrash. That's why we're seeing Kurt Russell on the front of it here. And they got songs that reference the different movies that he's done, like Escape from New York, Tango and Cash, stuff like that. So all in all, fun crossover thrash album like that. Then on what just dropped, this is one I discovered through that. I didn't know they were putting anything out. I didn't really know much about the band, but found out that Evil Dead has a brand new album, which is called, let me check the spine, Toxic Grace. And I like the art on it. That was the first thing that really caught my eye, classic old school thrash. And when I looked into it, I found out that the band actually went back to 1987 and put out 2 albums during the classic era. I thought they were one of those newer revivalist thrash bands, and they're not. So that was a really cool find. I believe all the guys are original in the sense that they go back from the 1980s. I think one guy joined in like 1990 or something, but I mean, same singer, same main people in there from the heyday. And so as soon as I saw that, I said, I want to check this out. And it was really, really good. So good, in fact, I went back and bought their reunion album from a couple of years back. I have not yet found their first 2 albums. This is the 4th in the catalog. But Evil Dead, Toxic Grace, another one I highly recommend. And here's another one I didn't know about. I didn't even know about it to put it in the what just dropped, but I went to Sound Exchange and found it there. Joe Gruschucky. He's from Philadelphia, I want to say, and I could be wrong, and apologize if I'm getting that wrong. I know it's a mill town. So he had a band, the House Rockers, the Iron City House Rockers. Then it was Joe Gruschucky and the House Rockers, and just Joe Gruschucky solo. So a 2 CD retrospective of all of his stuff. I had one album from 1995 that Bruce Springsteen produced and played on. That's how I found out who he was. So if you're a fan of New Jersey rock bands like Southside Johnny, Bruce Springsteen, bands of that nature, that's exactly what this is here. You'll probably really dig it. Now, going back to the previous week, here's also one that I found while putting together the What Just Dropped episode, and then I had to order it, so that's why I didn't have it on release day. But Jeff Coleman, 2023 AD, Jeff Coleman played with Phil Mogg from UFO in his band Mogg Way as the lead guitar player. And then when that band lost Pete Way and changed its name to, I think it was Sign of Four, they did an album called Dancing with St. Peter. He's on that. It's essentially the continuation. Phil Mogg is still on that lineup. Great album. I don't know much else about Jeff Coleman, although he pops up all over the place and he's got a ton of solo albums and stuff. But this one here, instrumental. And if you like the stuff that he did with Mogg Way, it's right in that vein. I have listened to some other stuff by him and it wasn't really for me. He does a lot of different styles, but this was great instrumental rock. Okay, and then I actually forgot to show you guys this last week. I had it, it was in the count, it was supposed to be there, and I just didn't grab it. The new Cold Sweat, it's sort of an archival release because it's got 4 songs recorded back in the day prior to their 1990 album for MCA Records that didn't make the cut, so they're in demo form, but they're really high quality. And then it's got a recent live show, I think from 2020, and it's also got a couple tracks recorded live from back in the day. So it's a compilation of cool stuff from the band, old and new. Those 4 studio tracks are right at the beginning, and they are as good as anything off of that debut. So I'm so glad that they put this out, simply called Unburied Alive. Recommend this if you are a fan of Mark Ferrari from Keel. That's guitar player. There he is. You can see him with his silver hair. He's always had that stripe in his hair from it. And then this one finally came out a few weeks back, maybe even a little further back, but it just took a while to get. Company of Wolves, Shakers and Tambourine. This was their second album, although they were demos that were recorded for the debut album that didn't make the cut. So it's 10 more songs that were available for the album but didn't happen. And then they released it as a second album in the mid-90s somewhere. But it was on a really small label, had really poor album art. I showed it to you guys back when this came out. I just hated the album art for it forever. So I was so glad when they decided to do new album art, remaster it, and release it with a bonus track. It's on Bad Reputation Records, so 11 tracks total now for this thing. Steve Conti, his brother, is also in here. Steve Conti, you may know as having been part of the newer lineup of the New York Dolls, and he plays with Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks in his band. But I knew him from Company of Wolves first, a glam metal band from the late 80s, early 90s. All right, getting ready for another episode with Pete Pardo on Sea of Tranquility, and one of the bands we are supposed to be talking about on there, New England. And I've never had anything in my collection. Currently, this is the only one I can get my hands on, a Rock Candy Records reissue of the album Explorer Suite. And I have to say, I am completely shocked I didn't have anything in my collection. So Pomp rock at its best. Pomp rock is a subgenre under prog, although I know there's a lot of things that go under that. So there's more in line with arena rock, melodic rock, stuff like that, but those are all subcategories under different things. For me, just because of the complexity and the technical ability that it takes to play the Pomp rock, I associate it more with prog than anything else, as I think a lot of people do. This is one of the topics we go back and forth and discuss on Sea of Tranquility. So you'll hear us talk more about this, but right now, devouring this, getting ready for that episode to know what I'm talking about for this. And it's kind of cool. I love exploring these albums, ones that I'm not familiar with, when I hear that that's bands they want to talk about. And then there's other ones that come up or I throw into the mix and it's new to them. So we have a lot of fun with that, and hopefully you'll tune into it. I'll give you guys a heads up when it's filmed. It should be in a few weeks or so. Okay, I found this, totally was not even looking. In fact, I think it was when I was looking for this and I'm scrolling through, and for whatever reason, Brownsville Station came up, and it's 4 albums from them. It's called the Complete Big Tree Recording, so it must have been the label that they got on. And their debut was not on it, and the last 2 albums were not on it. And I have the debut on CD, I have the final album on CD, so getting these 4 right in the middle, fill that up. I'm now only missing 1 album. I think it's a red one, and I think it was a self-titled album. So 4 albums, 2 apiece on CD. It's a 2 CD set on Wounded Bird. Came out in 2023. I do not know how it ran under the radar for me. I've had these on vinyl, and it was so hard to even find them on vinyl, much less on CD. So, man, I was super excited to get this. I've been a big fan of theirs for a long time, probably going back to Motley Crue covering them. But once I heard the album that was just simply under the Brownsville called Air Special, I love that thing through and through. I think it is a perfect album. That is one I go back to all the time, no matter what. I can always take that out and listen to it. And I've just wanted to get everything else from that band ever since. All right, I'm going to show you the guys the stuff that I picked up at Princeton in just a minute. But from one of those releases that I picked up, which was a Slade release, I picked up one more when I was at Sound Exchange. This was their big sort of comeback album, and the biggest album in the US, 1983. They put this out on the heels of having gained success from Quiet Riot and their cover of the song Come On Feel the Noise. So when that thing was climbing the charts and being big, the American labels wanted to go sign Slade and released this album, and they had a big hit with the song Run, Runaway. So I've never had this in the collection. It's called The Amazing Kamikaze Syndrome. And it is the remaster. It comes with a bunch of bonus tracks on it, which is very cool. A little more poppy than the Slade that I like out of the late 70s, but glad to finally get it in the collection. I thought it was time based on the stuff I'm going to show you now that I picked up from Princeton. And that's the place I went on Friday. You guys saw a Let's Go to the Record Store video on it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I did a record store scores, which I did cover this. So if you need to fast forward, you can fast forward, but I got some new insight on this right now to go through with you. And there's going to be a on the road to the record store discussion topic that I filmed while driving. Just so many other videos came up. You're seeing those right now as opposed to that one, which probably should have already been aired on Tuesday. So, you know, it is what it is, but it's coming down the road for you guys. So keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, the stuff I picked up, I mentioned Slade Rogues Gallery 1985 album. So I think it's the follow-up to this one from 83. I don't know that there was one in between it. And it's also got all the bonus stuff. So I'm happy trying to collect a bunch of these right now. I've got the Fandango box set, which is Joe Lynn Turner's first band before Rainbow. And they're in cardboard sleeves, but I found the second and third album in jewel cases. These are Wounded Bird record reissues of it, which I didn't even know existed. So really excited to get it. If you've never checked out Fandango and you don't happen to remember me talking about it in past videos, because I do bring it up a lot as one of my all-time favorite albums, it's the one called Cadillac. It was their 4th album. Now, you know, people may distance themselves from it because I say it is one of the best examples of disco-infused rock. It is a rock album, but it's got bass lines and beats to it that are along the lines of disco, sort of the same way when Kiss did I Was Made for Lovin' You, right? So this album is like that. If that intrigues you, go check it out. These are a little less that. These have a bit more of the R&B soul infused into the rock. All of it really good. Joe Lynn Turner sounds fantastic and like himself. So if you're just a fan of his vocals like I am, these are going to be great no matter what. But the music's also really interesting. And of these two, One Night Stand is awesome. Opening track alone, which is the title track, is cool. But Thief in the Night, second track on here, really, really cool song that you guys could check out if you want to get to know a little bit about Fandango, because I highly recommend them. Now, Hawkwind, I found this compilation called 25 Years On, 1977 to 1986. And it was just something I had never seen. I said, ooh, cool, a comp from my favorite period, late 70s, up to the middle 80s. Check it out. It's on Griffin. Came out sometime, I think, in the 90s. Then I got home and I opened it up and I saw that it said Volume 3. And I freaked out and I was like, are you kidding me? Is this from a box set? And I Googled it and it's from a box set. There's 4 discs. This is one of them. Okay, I talked about that in a video with Anthony, so you're probably already aware of that if you're keeping up on my videos. What I found out post that is the label Griffin Music actually released all of the albums individually. So you could buy a box set or you could just go buy the one from the period that you liked. This is just an individual album that got released. That's why there's nowhere on the outside or anywhere that says Volume 3 or that it's part of a box set or anything of that nature. Once I found that out after doing even more research, I felt a lot better. I hate it when record stores put out like the 4 discs from a box set and then people buy one here and there and then someone comes along and they buy one thinking that's all that there is, later to find out they don't have the whole collection. When you're a completist like me, that will drive you nuts. So I had that recently happen with a Quicksilver Messenger service best of that I bought, and I bought the one that I thought was the only disc, a single disc. And again, it wasn't printed anywhere on the outside or something. And then all of a sudden on the inside somewhere, I saw that it said part 1 or part 2 or something. And when I did the research, I found out that it was a 2 CD set that was bundled, probably came in a little cardboard sleeve or something. So I had to go on eBay, find that disc by itself, buy it, add it to my collection. So, you know. All right. Picked up an original copy on MCA Records of Planet P Project, the project from Tony Carey of Rainbow. And I had the debut, really great stuff, love that. Had this on vinyl, enough to pick it up on CD. I just found it recently, but it was on Renaissance Records, and I did not like the production. The cover of it was very dark. The back of it, the tracks were so small I couldn't read it, and it stacked them. It did not break it up into part 1, part 2, or disc 1, disc 2 like that, so that you can really follow along. Plus, just the fact that this is MCA Records, the original, I had to get this. And I think it was $5.99, so I don't mind replacing things like that. This was cool. I didn't realize when I was picking it up, it is a 2-album set on 1 CD. So it is the self-titled Rockets and the, I don't know if it's a second album, but their next album called No Ballads. So you get all of that here on this. There is the No Ballads album cover. And I always prefer this over doing, 2 small album covers on the front. I don't care for this. I would wish they would just make new art for it, and then on the back side it would show that. But in this case they chose just the 1 album cover and put the other album cover here, which I prefer more than anything. But I'd really rather it just be unique art. That's just another little pet peeve. But great stuff from the band that started out as Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, that became Detroit Wheels, then became Detroit, and I think 2 of those guys then continued on into Rockets. Could have my history wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the story there. All right, I was really deep into Saga a few weeks back, and picking up stuff here and there as I could find it, but I found 4 Saga albums. They were $5.99 a pop, and if you saw my scores from the record store, I always get that wrong. It's, what is it? Scores from the record store. I'll say record store scores a lot. I always reverse it. So scores from the record store. The sticker was on the cardboard digipack, and I didn't know that at the time. It had plastic over it. But then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, why did they put it inside and not on the plastic? I'm sure they did that so people couldn't peel it off and change the price, but geez, don't put a sticker on cardboard. Anyway, I got 4 of these. The Security of Illusion, Steel Umbrellas, Pleasure and Pain. I don't know if that's the original album art, but a lot better than the US cover. And Full Circle, which was their return to their classic sound, which is why it has the art like the first few albums on it. So all in all, very cool getting those. Picked up some metal. Reverend. This band has David Wayne from Metal Church in it. And I had I think it was the debut album, and I had a live EP, and I thought that's all they had done. Had no idea that they had this on Charisma Records. So finding this was like mind blowing, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So that was cool. But out of the three metal things I picked up, this one, Paradox Heresy, turned out to be the best. This is classic, what I would call San Francisco thrash, like Testament. Nothing's coming to mind besides that, but it was just great vocals, killer thrash, awesome lead work in it. Not growling, anything like that. Not too deep. It's the way I like it, at least, but that turned out to be really cool. And I thought I might have this in the collection, and I have zero from Paradox. Well, what I actually have, I have two other bands that are called Paradox, and I knew they were different, but my mind may have just been playing tricks on me, thinking maybe you have this. But either way, I knew I didn't have it in a jewel case, so I bought it because of that. But after coming home and checking, I definitely didn't have it. So that was awesome. Now this one here, which I thought I didn't have, Snow White, turns out I did have it. And the disc that I have it, which is a digipack and I hate, has more tracks. So I kind of lost on this one, but like I said, it is a digipack, or sorry, it is a jewel case. It's limited edition, number 70. So that was kind of cool. So I don't know. I'm not sad. I don't think I paid too much for it. I'm probably just going to keep both, but you know, never quite sure. The reason why is the copy I have looks like that, and they used this one for this. So I thought perhaps, and I did look at it and say, I might have it. But Princeton is an hour and 15 minutes away from me, and I don't go very often, and I wasn't going to buy it and try to return it. And for the price it was, even if it was 10 bucks, I think it might have been $9.99, I can't recall. It was worth it for me to pick it up, because if I didn't have it, I would have been kicking myself. So yeah, did that. And then I picked up a couple Jacob Dylan related things, meaning Wallflower's debut album 1992 and a solo album that Rick Rubin produced. And I haven't opened it just yet because obviously see how much music I've got. But at $1.99, killer prices that they have at Princeton. So love that. I think this is the more acoustic style stuff than the way he sounds, even though, yes, the Wallflowers is pretty mellow stuff. Now, I made a mention in the video about having had the second album that is so popular, and later I got rid of it because it wasn't my cup of tea, or it didn't move me, or I don't know the exact words I used. And some people said, well, why did you buy it and get rid of it if you didn't like it, only to re-buy it again because you found out who was in it? And that's not the case. And I think we can all understand that sometimes over a 35-year period that I've been collecting, that early on, if I didn't listen to an album for quite some time, or I fell out with the band and I stopped collecting their albums because it wasn't that those newer things weren't what I was interested in, when I needed money for something or I wanted to go buy new albums, I'd take a stack in and trade them. You got $4 or $5 per CD at that time. I could take a stack of 10 and get $40 or $50 and have that money to buy brand new stuff. Didn't mean I don't like the albums. It just meant I could part with it. And so when I found out who the lead guitar player was from School of Fish joining in on the band, and that was because he had just recently passed away. I didn't know that he was ever a member of that band. I said, wow, I should really recheck out the Wallflowers because I love School of Fish so much. Let me just recheck it out. Not that I thought it was going to change anything, and it was just, wow, I do love it now. You know, musical tastes change and grow. And because of that, realizing how much I enjoyed it, I've been buying more Wallflower stuff and Jacob Dylan. So it's just, you know, tastes change, and you say, I kind of wish I hadn't gotten rid of that. Let me go get it. And you get it and you buy other stuff. That's music collecting. That's life. And that's one of the things I've learned over 35 years that I've talked to you guys about, you know, in that video that I made on that topic, which was at this point, I never get rid of a CD. Because you never know when your musical tastes are going to want that, no matter whether you didn't like it at that time. The new Slash album, which is just not for me right now. I've been getting more and more into blues for the last 5 to 10 years. I'm still not an over-the-moon blues guy, but there are days when that bluesy sound is just right. And when it is, I'm gonna pull out that Slash album and I bet you I am gonna fall in love with it. Okay, got 4 more to go through with you. This was another Sound Exchange visit that I made. Found a Steve Hunter CD called Deacon from '87. It's on the IRS Records label, but it was part of the No Speak series. And I forget who put that together. A major guy in the music industry created the No Speak label and then got all these famous artists to make instrumental albums. Wishbone Ash was the first one I got, and I've been slowly collecting albums like that ever since. I got one from Billy Currie that Steve Howe plays guitar on, the whole thing. I mean, it's just amazing stuff. So I found this one. I've never been a fan of Steve Hunter, really knew much about him. I think he had played with Alice Cooper at one point, or played on some albums or did something, but I know the name. And because it's on a label and the way that it is and what it is, I decided to check it out, which means I streamed it first and fell in love with it. And I think it was $5.99 and got it. It was still sealed, so that was an amazing deal. Another band I'm going to be talking about with Pete Pardo on Sea of Tranquility, the band Pilot. A's and B's and rarities, so a collection, but it's cool because it's got not only the A side but the B side on here. And you'll know them from their big hit called Magic. And I know that one. I don't know anything of this else that's on here, and it's kind of Beatlesque poppy stuff, more pop than rock. But I totally hear that ELO style production and stuff. And what I found out was, at least their debut, Alan Parsons produced it. And people from the Alan Parsons Project were on here. The guitar player, Ian Berenson, joined the band after the first album. So suddenly, knowing more information about it made me want to explore it, and giving it a new listen with that in mind, I like it. Now, why I didn't, like it, I've been aware of the band for decades, but it just didn't speak to me at that time. But now I can hear the beauty in it. So I picked that up. I'm devouring that right now. Found this Pretty Maids Future World, and this one here is like a 2011 reissue, Columbia Records, done very nicely with pristine art and everything, and a good booklet. As opposed to, if you know the one that is on the Metalworks Collectibles label, which is just piss poor packaging. I've hated that. I had it back in the day, didn't like it. Found this, brand new, sealed, $11.99 or something like that. And I couldn't believe it because now I can have a good copy of this. So grabbed that and then found a standalone copy of this from Violence, featuring 2 of the guys from Machine Head. This is Oppressing the Masses from 1990 on the Megaforce, Atlantic Records label. And so we've got, I think it's Rob Flynn and Phil DeMel. And I've been searching out more Phil DeMel stuff since he joined Kerry King in his new band. But that name has been popping up a lot recently. He's in some other stuff. He did Supergroup with Bobby Blitz Ellsworth from Overkill. Mike Portnoy was part of that. Phil DeMel, and I forget who the other guy was. They just did it by their initials, but they did a covers album, sort of classic rock of the 70s done thrash style. It was awesome. Anyways, Violence, got that. It was a weird compilation thing. The art didn't look anything like this. It was a reissue. It had some bonus material or whatever, but I found now an original pressing of it. I won't get rid of that other one because it's still part of the catalog, but glad to finally get that. Now, the Holy Grail album, you've probably already seen the video on it. Motley Crue, Too Fast for Love, the original Leather Records version of this. Got a reissue in 2005 on the Hippo Select label. You can see it up there. It's a limited edition there. That's about the only thing on here that tells you it is not literally the original from 1981. But even on the side, it doesn't say the Hippo or anything. And I know you can't really see it in there. I don't think the camera will focus on it, but it says Leather Records right there. This is not the solid red the way that it was on the album. Everything about this is cool. So if you don't know the leather mix, it's an entirely different mix from their essentially demo, professionally recorded demo that was done. that sold so well that Elektra Records picked it up, remixed, and released that as the debut album. That's what we all know. But they cleaned it up so much, and it sounds fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But this is the original mix, and there's a lot of differences to it. Mentioned this before, the Live Wire song has hand clapping at those breaks at the very end, where you're just hearing silence or a little drum tap or something. And there's stuff like that. There was reverb on the vocals that really echoed out on certain lines. They took all of that out. So there's a lot of differences in it, and it's a cool new way to hear the album, and really, really excited I got it. I have wanted a copy since 1989 when I first became a huge Crew fan, when I became a real music collector, but it was always out of my price range, and I finally got one. And it comes with their original 45. This was released before the album for the songs Toast of the Town, Stick to Your Guns, which never made it to the album, although these two songs plus the leather mix have long since been released as part of compilations and box sets and stuff like that, but never repressed in their original artwork like this. And I've only ever seen the front cover. I had no idea that the back of it had anything on it. So I thought it was just going to be a paper white sleeve. And I was so glad to see there's actual art and information about it and, the whole thing. So very, very cool. That was just a super, super find for me. And the whole experience from this past weekend was just awesome. 5 days off, hitting music stores, hanging out with friends, talking music, man, it was killer. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along with me to the record stores and those discussion topics, at Sound Exchange with Anthony Coviello, and just everything that we did over this past weekend. And again, don't forget to keep an eye out for that On the Road to the Record Store discussion topic, which is going to focus on Alcatraz. But the topic is really about bands that constantly change members and how we feel about that. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.